This is Inner Motion, a channel for those who train in silence, who grind when no one is watching, who choose the pain that makes them stronger. If that sounds like you, if you're tired of being soft, tap that subscribe button, because this isn't motivation, this is transformation. I chose the hard path, not because I wanted to prove anything, not because I enjoyed suffering. I chose it because the easy life was killing me. It was soft, it was comfortable, but it was slowly eating me alive. I woke up late, scrolled through nonsense, made excuses over and over again. And one day, I looked in the mirror and hated the man I saw. The hard path didn't arrive with glory. It whispered in silence. It didn't offer comfort. It offered growth. And that whisper, that quiet invitation, was the loudest truth I had ever heard. I asked myself, what if this is all you ever become? What if this version of you is the peak? And in that moment, I knew something had to break. Either my excuses or my potential. So I chose the hard path. I got up before the sun. I ran when I didn't feel like it. I trained when I was tired. I studied when no one cared. I said no when everyone else said yes. And it broke me. It shattered every lazy habit, every soft routine, every victim mindset I had built over the years. But the hard path, it's not just physical, it's mental, emotional, spiritual. You don't just train your body, you train your discipline. You train your response to failure. You train your soul to fight, because the hard path will test you. It will rip open every weakness and demand an answer. Most people run from that. I used to run too, but not anymore. The first thing the hard path changed was my identity. Before I chose this road, I was ruled by comfort. If it felt good, I did it. If it felt hard, I avoided it. I built my life around ease, and it cost me everything. My discipline, my confidence, my edge. I was soft, not just physically, but mentally. I was the guy who started things but never finished. I was the guy who talked big but stayed small. I was the guy who blamed everything except himself. But the hard path, it stripped that away. It didn't ask who I thought I was. It revealed who I actually was. And the truth hit me like a brick. I was weak. I was average. I was a liar. Because every time I said I wanted more but didn't act, I was lying. Every time I snoozed the alarm. Every time I said I'd start tomorrow. Every time I broke a promise to myself, I was proving I couldn't be trusted. The hard path forced me to face that. And at first, it crushed me. But that pain was sacred. Because inside that pain was honesty. And inside that honesty was power. The power to choose again. To not run this time. To not quit again. To not be who I used to be. That was the shift. The beginning of something new. The hard path didn't care how I felt. It only cared if I showed up. It only cared if I did the reps. If I stuck to the plan. If I said no to distraction. If I stayed focused when no one was looking. It was in those silent decisions that the old me started to die. And the new me started. To emerge, I didn't feel motivated. I felt tired. I felt angry. I felt broken. But I moved anyway. And that changed everything. Because I learned that discipline doesn't need motivation. It only needs a decision. One clear decision, repeated, over and over again, until it rewires your brain, until it becomes who you are. The hard path taught me that greatness isn't found in grand moments. It's built in the tiny decisions no one sees. Waking up at 5 when the world is still asleep, saying no to the desert when everyone else is indulging, reading the extra chapter when your eyes are burning, hitting the gym when your muscles already ache. It's not sexy, it's not impressive, but it's everything. Discipline became my new religion, not because I wanted to be perfect, but because I was tired of being fragile. The more I kept my word, the more I started to believe in myself. And that belief, that was the beginning of power. When you do what you said you would do, especially when you don't feel like it, you start to realize something important. You are not your feelings. You are not your mood. You are your actions. Your patterns, your rituals, that's what defines you. So I built new rituals. Cold showers to teach my body that comfort isn't the goal. Early mornings to own the day before it owns me. Physical training to put my emotions in check. Planning my day the night before. Journaling my losses. Tracking my wins. Repeating the cycle. Over and over until the hard things became normal. At first, it felt forced, mechanical, but eventually it became identity. And that's when everything started to shift. People started to notice, not because I talked about it, but because my presence changed. I was calmer under pressure, more focused in conversation, less reactive, more precise, because I wasn't just training my body, I was sharpening my mind. And the world responds to sharpness, not noise. The more I trained, the more I suffered on purpose, the less I feared. Suffering that was forced. Suddenly rejection didn't shake me. Failure didn't break me. Pain didn't intimidate me, because I had felt it all already, on my own terms. And when you choose your pain, you own your power. Asterisk, I used to avoid everything that felt hard. Hard conversations, hard workouts, hard truths. But the hard path forced me to stop running. It made me face the parts of myself I tried to bury. The insecurity, the need for approval, it dragged them all into the light, and it didn't let me look away. That's what the hard path really is. It's a confrontation with your laziness, with your ego, with your weakness. And when you stop running from those parts of yourself, you don't just become strong, you become whole. You start to walk different, talk different. You stop trying to impress people because you've impressed yourself. You stop chasing validation because you've validated your own power. You stop needing the world to clap because you're already clapping for yourself in silence. Discipline gives you peace, not comfort, but clarity. A deep knowing that no matter what happens, you'll respond, not react, not collapse, not disappear, but respond with strength because you've practiced the pain already, and pain practiced becomes peace. That was the shift. I stopped looking for motivation. I stopped chasing inspiration, and I built a spiritual rhythm. Through doing hard things, every single day, the hard path taught me something no book ever could. You cannot lead anyone if you haven't learned to lead yourself, and you cannot lead yourself without discipline. That's the foundation. That's the bedrock. Because leadership isn't about charisma, it's about consistency. It's not about hype, it's about standards. The old me used to talk about goals. I would post about ambition, make vision boards, but I was soft, because when life punched me, I folded. When things got uncomfortable, I escaped. That version of me could never lead, not because he didn't want to, but because he hadn't built the spine to stand. The hard path changed that. It made me become someone others could count on, not because I was perfect, but because I showed up, because I didn't flinch, because I kept going when others quit, because I became reliable under pressure. I used to want applause. Now I want alignment. I used to want praise. Now I want peace. And peace comes from one thing: living in integrity, doing what you say, being who you claim to be, matching your words with your actions, and your actions with your values. When you live like that, people feel it. They may not always understand it, but they respect it, because that kind of presence is rare. It's the quiet force in the room. The person who doesn't speak much, but when they do, it hits, because it's backed by something real. Discipline, repetition, conviction. The hard path doesn't just make you strong, it makes you trustworthy, because people can trust someone who doesn't negotiate with their standards, someone who doesn't waver when life gets messy, someone who doesn't need everything to be perfect in order to execute. That's leadership, that's mastery, and it's built, not born, earned, not inherited. And here's the truth: if you're not consistent privately, you'll never be powerful publicly. If you can't follow through when no one's watching, don't expect to shine when everyone is. Discipline is what turns quiet actions into loud presence. It's what turns daily habits into lifelong influence. It's what builds the kind of internal legacy that can't be taken away. I stopped trying to convince people. I stopped trying to prove anything, because the proof was in my habits, in my calendar, in my routines, in the way I woke up, in the way I trained, in the way I held my standards when no one else did. The old me used to talk about change. The new me became it. The old me used to get shaken by life. The new me became the one who steadied others. Because that's what happens when you take the hard path. You don't just get stronger, you get deeper. You don't just grow, you stabilize. You become the calm in the storm. Because you've lived in storms and built shelter inside your soul. Discipline stopped being something I did. It became who I was. It wasn't a task. It was an identity, not a rule, but a rhythm. I realized that the hard path was never about punishing myself. It was about freeing myself. Because the more I sacrificed, the more peace I earned. The more I embraced discomfort, the more comfort I built in my own skin. The more I said no to pleasure, the more power I felt in my own choices. And now I don't need the world to be easy because I've made myself strong. I don't need people to believe in me because I believe in myself. I don't need everything to go right because I know how to move when it all goes wrong. Asterisk. That's the change. Not the muscle, not the money, not the success. It's the internal transformation. The steel spine, the quiet fire, the relentless spirit that nothing outside of you can break. That's what the hard path gave me, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. This is Inner Motion, a channel for those who suffer on purpose, who choose the hard thing daily, not to impress the world, but to impress themselves. If that's you, if you're building in silence, subscribe now, because this is not entertainment. This is who you're becoming, and no one's going to do it for you. Asterisk.